Malaysia urges UN Special Envoy appointment to tackle Islamophobia. Malaysia regrets Israel's barbarism, calls for drastic UN action. Hello, good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shuhaida Arifin and you're watching World Today. Malaysia has put forward a strong case for the Global South's greater inclusion in global governance, development, financing and climate action, stressing that the voices of developing nations must no longer be sidelined. Addressing the 79th United Nations General Assembly General Debate, Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan outlined Malaysia's vision for a more just and equitable world order.
The countries of the Global South have continued to be marginalized and remain underrepresented on many fronts. Global socio-economic development, climate mitigation efforts, education, health and infrastructure development. International mechanisms fail to adapt to current realities, often isolating and penalizing developing countries, placing the burden of environment guilt onto them, while disregarding our very real needs. The lack of infrastructure, technology and resources has prevented developing countries from fully engaging in international system and aspirations.
He further said achieving equitable access to development financing remains a significant challenge, and he called for innovative financing models that support sustainability, conservation and climate action, as well as the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Meanwhile, Malaysia has urged the United Nations to appoint a special envoy to combat Islamophobia, calling for immediate global action against the growing wave of hate speech and violence targeting minorities, particularly Muslims. Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan also pointed out the urgent need for measures to promote religious tolerance, urging that there is room for everyone to coexist in the era of globalization.
We are appalled by the alarming trend of hatred, intolerance and acts of violence against Muslims. This cannot continue, Mr. President. In the era of globalization, there is room for everyone to coexist. And it is our job, under the banner of a united world, to ensure that peace will prevail. We must take action now.
During the 79th United Nations General Assembly General Debate, he further reaffirmed Malaysia's readiness to support the UN's efforts in fostering dialogue between communities to promote mutual understanding and acceptance, while acknowledging that Islamophobia remains a significant threat to Muslims worldwide. Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan pointed out that the broader issue of hatred against any religious groups undermines universal values of justice and peace. On another note, Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan said Malaysia has urged for the reinstatement of the United Nations Special Committee against Apartheid and reiterated the need for renewed global efforts to combat injustice. He said the international community must act swiftly to address the ongoing violations. He further called on the UN Security Council to invoke its Chapter 7 powers to impose an immediate arms embargo on Israel, underscoring the urgency of halting the violence and ensuring accountability for breaches of international law.
Israel's actions with each passing day raise our doubt as to whether it actually believes in the UN system or values its membership in this organization. Its illegal occupation has entrenched a system of apartheid and discrimination against Palestinians. The Israel regime has itself declared its intent to wipe out an entire population. This is, Mr. President, without question, a genocide. The United Nations must not remain idle. We must urgently utilize the existing processes founded by the General Assembly, along with mechanisms developed by Human Rights Council.
The Foreign Minister also stressed that the veto power within the Security Council must be reformed, particularly in cases of human rights abuses. He said a veto should not be exercised at will, adding that there must be exceptions in cases of crimes against humanity and attacks on civilian infrastructure. Hezbollah confirmed the killing of its leader Hassan Nasrallah in a massive Israeli air attack on a densely populated neighborhood of Beirut that reduced several residential buildings to rubble. Hezbollah, however, vowed to continue the battle against Israel in support of Gaza and Palestine and in defense of Lebanon and its steadfast and honorable people. Despite calling for a lowering of tensions in the region, US President Joe Biden's administration has shown little interest in using leverage such as the suspension of weapons sales to restrain Israel following a series of increasingly escalatory attacks in Lebanon in recent weeks. Israel has also waved aside calls for a diplomatic agreement and pledged to press forward with continued strikes. Tens of thousands of Lebanese continue to flee their homes during Israel's repeated airstrikes. Israeli attacks inside Lebanon have killed at least 1,030 people since 16 September, including 56 women and 87 children. A final death toll from the massive Israeli strikes that killed Nasrallah and destroyed several large residential buildings on Friday is not yet known as rescue workers try to find bodies in the rubble. Meanwhile, Malaysia expressed deep regret over Israel's barbaric actions following the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, describing the illegal state of Israel as arrogant and disrespectful of the decisions made by the United Nations. Speaking to the media after delivering the national statement at the 79th UN General Assembly, Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan strongly condemned Israel's actions which disregarded the views or decision of the international community. He also emphasized the need to impose an arms embargo on Israel to prevent the country from continuing to use weapons to kill innocent people, especially women and children. Earlier during the national statement session, Muhammad also urged the UN Security Council to invoke its powers under Chapter 7 to impose an arms embargo on Israel, emphasizing the importance of stopping the violence and ensuring accountability for violations of international law. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned Moscow for waging war on hospitals after Russian strikes on a hospital in the border city of Sumy killed at least 10 people. Sumy lies just across the border from Russia's Kursk region, where Kiev launched a surprise offensive in 6 August, aimed in part at creating a buffer zone inside Russia. Zelensky said Russia hit one of the city's hospitals with drones. According to officials, the attack hit the St. Panteleimon Clinical Hospital near the city center, with a nurse among the dead. Ukrainian Interior Minister Igor Klimenko explained that the first strike killed at least one person and damaged several floors of the hospital. He added during the evacuation of patients, the Russian forces struck again. The hospital's director, Volodymyr Potselyev, said the hospital's admission department, casualty department and fourth floor were destroyed. He further said seriously injured patients had been transferred to intensive care units at other hospitals. The attack comes as Zelensky is pressing Kiev's Western allies to allow the use of long-range precision weapons to strike deep inside Russia. Now, over in Somalia, at least 6 people were killed and 10 injured by bomb explosions in capital Mogadishu and a town in the country's middle Shabelle region. It was not immediately clear who had carried out the attack, through Al-Shabaab group frequently orchestrates bombings and gun attacks in Mogadishu and elsewhere in the Horn of Africa countries. The blast in Mogadishu involved a bomb-rigged car that was parked on a road near the National Theatre in Mogadishu, about 1 kilometer away from the president's office. The Al-Shabaab group has been fighting for years to topple Somalia's central government and establish its own rule. up, Hurricane John kills nearly 10 people in Mexico. Nine people are confirmed drowned and at least 48 are missing after a boat carrying migrants capsized off Spain's Canary Island overnight, the latest in a series of such disasters off the west coast of Africa. Sea rescue team said in a statement they had answered a distress call off El Hierro, one of the islands in the Atlantic archipelago, shortly after midnight. They managed to save 27 people out of about 84 on board. Head of the Canary Island Prefecture, Anselmo Pestana, said survivors had told their rescuers that the boat had set off from Nouadhibou in Mauritania, some 800 kilometers away. He added the most critical part of the operation was when the rescue vessels approached the boat in distress because it was vital that those on board the stricken crafty stay calm. He explained that they had to follow the instructions of the rescue crews to ensure their vessel stayed balanced and did not capsize. However, he said as the migrants had gone 2 days without food or water, that probably contributed to the panic and the boat capsizing. This disaster follows the death of 39 migrants in early September when their boat sank off Senegal while attempting a similar crossing to the Canaries from where migrants hoped to reach mainland Europe. 6 bodies were discovered on Friday evening inside an abandoned van in Mexico's western state of Sinaloa. Local officials reported that the bodies were found piled in the back of the vehicle, placed in bags and tied with ribbons. The van, which was left on a highway in Culiacan, the capital of Sinaloa, bore a message on one side reading, "Welcome to Culiacan," in black uppercase letters. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador expressed his condolences over the fatalities and pledged that his administration, in conjunction with the armed forces, would persist in efforts to avert violent confrontations. 2 rival factions of the powerful Sinaloa cartel have been fighting since 9th September, a conflict that can be traced to the high-profile arrest on U.S. soil of legendary trafficker Ismael El Mayo Zambada on 25th July. Zambada alleges he was kidnapped in Mexico and flown to the U.S. by Joaquin Guzman Lopez, a senior crime boss in a rival faction of the Sinaloa cartel who had been holding talks with the U.S. about surrendering. Hurricane John, which made landfall twice on Mexico's Pacific coast, has now left nearly 10 people dead, all of them in southern Guerrero state, home to the beachside city of Acapulco. Authorities said on Saturday, John first slammed into a shore earlier this week as a Category 3 hurricane, churning along the coast for several days and intensifying before striking land again, this time as a tropical storm. Local media gave a higher number, but the government did not officially confirm those figures. Guerrero State was the worst affected, especially Acapulco, which was ravaged in October 2023 by Hurricane Otis, which claimed dozens of lives. While the rains have now stopped, the streets of Acapulco were still flooded on Saturday as residents waited for emergency aid or wandered around with few belongings they were able to salvage from their homes. Elsewhere, authorities across a wide swathe of the southeastern United States faced the daunting task on Saturday of cleaning up from Hurricane Helene, one of the most powerful to hit the country as the death toll continued to rise. Nearly 50 deaths were reported by early Saturday, and officials feared still more bodies would be discovered across several states. Some of the worst rains hit western North Carolina, which saw almost 76 centimeters of precipitation fall on Mount Mitchell in Yancey County. Residents of Mill Spring, North Carolina, navigated damaged roadways and downed trees to assess damage to their properties. Rutherford County emergency officials warned residents near the Lake Leo Dam that it might fail, although they said late on Friday that failure did not appear imminent. Scientists say climate change contributes to fueling stronger, more destructive hurricanes. Downgraded late on Friday to a post-tropical cyclone, the remnants of Helene continued to produce heavy rains across several states, sparking massive flooding that threatened to cause dam failures that could inundate entire towns. At least 10 people received medical treatment, with 2 hospitalized after a major fire disrupted production at a key Tata electronic plant in southern India, which makes Apple iPhone components. The fire occurred at the plant in the city of Hosur in Tamil Nadu state, which makes some iPhone components. It broke out near another building inside the Tata complex, which will in coming months turn out complete iPhones. Top district administrative official KM Sarayu said the fire was contained to one building and has been fully extinguished. However, no decision has been made on when manufacturing process can restart. According to Sarayu, 523 workers were on shift when the fire broke out, adding that all employees had been evacuated and accounted for. Tata Electronics is one of the major contract makers of iPhones in India, along with Foxconn. The company said it was investigating the cause of the fire and would take the necessary steps to safeguard employees and other stakeholders. The incident is the latest to affect Apple's iPhone supply chain, just as the company is looking to diversify beyond China and sees India as a key growth market. It is also the latest in a string of incidents to affect Apple's suppliers in India over the last few years. A SpaceX rocket soared into the sky with the 2 passengers on board, leaving 2 seats empty to return American astronauts who have been stranded for months on the International Space Station ISS. The Falcon 9 rocket took off at 1:17 p.m. local time from Cape Canaveral, Florida. It used a new launch pad, and it was the pad's first use for a crewed mission. On board were NASA astronaut Nick Hague and the Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbunov. When they return from the space station in February, they will bring back 2 space veterans, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, whose stay on the ISS was prolonged for months by problems with their Boeing-designed Starliner spacecraft. The newly developed Starliner was making its first crewed flight when it delivered Wilmore and Williams to the ISS in June. They were supposed to be there for only an 8-day stay, but after problems with the Starliner's propulsion system emerged during the flight, NASA was forced to weigh a radical change in plans. After weeks of intensive tests on the Starliner's reliability, the space agency finally decided to return it to Earth without its crew and to bring the 2 stranded astronauts back home on the SpaceX mission Crew 9. Coming up in sports, Salah's penalty takes Arne's slot side to the top of Premier League. Perak FC climbed up to 4th spot in the Super League standings after taming hosts Seri Pahang FC 3-0 at the Temerloh Municipal Council Stadium last night. The visitors under coach Yusri Chetla, however, had to wait until 43rd minute to draw first blood, with skipper Luciano Guaicochea powering home a header off a corner kick taken by Tommy Mawatpada. 3 minutes after the break, Guaicochea struck again, this time beating the Elephants goalkeeper Muhammad Asfar Arif Muhammad Sukri with a powerful shot. A pile driver from Muhammad Firdaus Sayyadi in the 61st minute sealed their third straight win. The win allowed Perak to climb up from 7th spot to 4th with 15 points from 10 matches, just 1 point behind third place, Terengganu FC. Meanwhile, over at the Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin Stadium in Kuala Nerus, visitors Selangor FC edged Terengganu FC 1-0 to end the Turtles' 5-match unbeaten home run. Chile-born striker Ronnie Fernandez stole the thunder when he applied the finishing touch to a short pass from Alvin Fortes after just 27 seconds to stun the home team. With the win, head coach Muhammad Nizam Jamil said Selangor managed to consolidate their second spot with 25 points from 11 matches, 6 behind leaders Johor Darul Takzim JDT and 9 ahead of Terengganu. Ibrahim Konate headed home his first ever Premier League goal, then Mohamed Salah converted a penalty as Liverpool climbed to the top of the Premier League table with a 2-1 victory over struggling Wolverhampton Wanderers. Konate scored in first half injury time after Diego Jota beat his man down the left, then served up a pinpoint cross at the 25-year-old centre-back leap to head home. Wolves capitalised on some sloppy defending by Konate, however to level in the 56th minute. The French centre-back appeared to be leaving the ball to run out for a goal kick, but Jürgen Strand-Larsen kept it in and Ryan and Nuri scored from close range. Yet Salah silenced the celebratory home crowd at the Molineux 5 minutes later by sending keeper Sam Johanstone the wrong way after Liverpool were awarded a penalty for Nelson Semedo's foul on Jota. Arne's slot men have 15 points after 6 games, one more than both Manchester City and Arsenal, while Wolves are bottom with a single point. Liverpool's victory comes amid a busy schedule, with Slot's side crushing West Ham United 5-1 in the League Cup third-round tie last Wednesday, while they host Bologna in a Champions League match in 4 days' time. Reigning Saudi Pro League champions Al Hilal continued the perfect start to their season with a 4-2 win over Al Kholoud early this morning. Al Hilal now have 5 wins from 5 matches to top the standing with a perfect 15 points. Khalido Koulibaly put the visitors on the board of the rebound when Renan Lodi hit the post from long range in the 38th minute. Malcolm doubled the lead in the 43rd when he beat 2 defenders and found the far corner of the goal. It was 3-0 before the end of the half when Serhej Milinkovic-Savic beautifully set up Ali Al-Bulahi, who finished it off from close range. In just 3 minutes into the second half, Lodi made it 4-0 when he found the back of the net. The hosts finally did get on the board when Hammam Al-Hamami scored off a low cross and William Troost-Ekong scored off a penalty, making it 4-2. Up next, global companies jockey for space at Tokyo Game Show. Visitors are coming out in droves for the ultimate pop culture and gaming festival, Comic-Con Africa, returning for the 6th year to Johannesburg. For the organizers, it's a fun escape as they expected an estimated 60,000 and 70,000 fans to come through the doors. Marketing manager for Comic-Con Africa, Kelvin van der Berg, said the regular fan favorites also return, which include the Artist Alley, the main stage, an unparalleled shopping experience, international celebrities, esports, and daily casual cosplay competitions.
I think what's really important about this is that this is the escape that a lot of people need, even if it's just for a weekend. The world can be a very scary, treacherous place, and the fact that somebody can come here dressed as Spider-Man and collect some of their favorite hobbies and enjoy things with the community that's so receptive and so respective to those hobbies, that's why it's really important.
The convention floors were also a bustling hub of activity, with exhibitors offering a wide range of merchandise from rare comic books and graphic novels to gaming accessories and apparel. Fans can expect to find an abundance of treasures to add to their collections. The annual Tokyo Game Show TGS kicked off in the city of Chiba, east of Tokyo, on Thursday with a record high of some 980 exhibitors showcasing new video game consoles and game titles. More than half of this year's exhibitors are from overseas. At the TGS, Sony Interactive Entertainment Incorporated is showing off the PS5 Pro, an advanced version of its PlayStation 5 console that features high-resolution images for the first time in the world.
We know Nintendo that they are keeping secret to the last moment, so probably they will announce the Nintendo Switch 2 next year, I hope. Well, I'm a little bit skeptical about the PlayStation 5 Pro because it's quite expensive. It's without the optical disc reader. Well, I don't know if we need halfway through the generation if we need another console.
Square Enix has set a booth where visitors can play a remake edition of its Dragon Quest III title. Capcom is also exhibiting the latest work of its Monster Hunter series. The show was open on Thursday and Friday for people in the game industry and on the weekend to the general public at the Makuhari Massey Convention Center. Organizers expected it to attract about 250,000 visitors. The excavation of a large Viking-era burial site in Denmark has unearthed 50 unusually well-preserved skeletons that archaeologists expect will help shed light on the lives of the Nordic peoples, best known for their seafaring exploits in the Middle Ages. The skeletons, discovered near Denmark's third-largest city, Odense, were kept intact by high water levels and favorable soil conditions that prevented them from decomposing.
Skeletons are so amazing. They are so well preserved. There are 5 fingers, 5 toes, and that just opens up a whole new sets of possibilities for discoveries. Maybe even things we didn't know we wanted to know.
Rare artifacts such as knives, glass pearls, and brooches dated between year 850 to 970 were also found at the excavation, which began 6 months ago. According to Michael Lundo, the excavation leader from Museum Odense, the grave gifts indicate most of the people were part of a small community of farmers, although a woman of a higher status was buried with a silver ornamented knife and a piece of glass which was rare in the Viking Age. Most of the skeletons have been removed from the graves and packed in cardboard boxes at the museum to dry out before the examination and final cleaning. Alright, so that concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, Malaysia regrets Israel's barbarism, calls for drastic UN action. Till then, I'm Shuhaida Arifin from River to the Sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.